So again, thank you all for joining us this morning, and welcome to Work Plus's Ready, Set, On Board session discussing effective onboarding strategies for student employment supervisors. Quick introduction of myself. My name is Abby Anderson. I'm a Program Coordinator Senior with Work Plus. I've been a professional staff member here at ASU for a little over 5.5 years now. But I was a working learner or a student employee here at ASU for 2.5 years until I graduated and then started just right up into that professional staff role. So again, thank you all for joining me today. Can't wait to discuss onboarding strategies with you all. Before I do get started, just quick request. If you're able to turn your cameras on, I'd love for you to turn your cameras on so I can see your smiling faces. But if not, I totally understand. I get it. So looking at our session today, just wanted to give you guys a little overview. We're going to touch just a little bit on working learner or, again, student employee demographics and how that might play a role into the student's onboarding experience. I'll then cover a little bit about the preparation leading up to the actual onboarding process, but not spending a whole lot of time on that today. And then we'll go into things to consider during that onboarding process, as well as some of the best practices that you should be keeping in mind. I'll then briefly cover a few of the resources that Work Plus has available to you all and to your working learners that will just help out with the onboarding process. And then we're going to wrap up our session today with an opportunity for you all to share your own experiences, tools, strategies that have worked well for you. Just again, reminder with Work Plus, we are building a community of supervisors, student employees, and part of that is sharing our own experiences, sharing what works well for you and your team, because we're all about why reinvent the wheel, right? If something is working for your team, share that out with the rest of us so that we can maybe implement it into our own experiences for our student employees. So getting started, looking at the demographics for our working learners, this might look familiar for some of you, but what we do know about working learners or, again, student employees is that oftentimes these are students that must work while attending school, whether that's they need to pay for their tuition, they need to buy their textbooks, or they have a family that they're supporting. Working is not an option. They have to be working, right? And for some of our students, this might be their first job ever. So again, just keeping these things in mind as we are getting ready to onboard new students into our offices. On the left-hand side of the slide here, we have some statistics coming from a study done by Georgetown University that is stating 43% of working learners are coming from low-income households. And of these working learners, 18% are Black, 58% are female, 25% are Latinx, and 47% are first-generation students. Knowing the demographics of our students and where they may be coming from is definitely important, right? Looking at ASU specifically, as you can see on the right-hand side, we know that at least 7 out of 10 of our undergraduate students are working at least one job during their undergraduate career. And additionally, again, ASU employs upwards of 10,000 students on an annual basis. So again, knowing that for some, this is their first job ever, how can we be intentional in taking the onboarding experience just one step further and showing them that we hear who they are, we care about who they are, and we're here to support them, not just as a student employee in our office, but as an individual, as the human that they are. So again, just keeping in mind that this is potentially their first job, and with there possibly being gaps in their, based off of their demographics in their experience or knowledge of certain things, the onboarding process is very important in setting the standard and expectations for their student employment experience. So I wanted to touch a little bit about why it's important to have an effective onboarding strategy. First and foremost, having an effective onboarding strategy is going to encourage students to have more bonding experiences with their department or team. So this can just promote students to build those connections and find support within their new team, which is just going to increase the students' trust in your department and you as a supervisor, and just helping them feel a sense of belonging within your team. Secondly, Ultimately, it's helping the new employees become confident in the work that they're doing, which is going to reduce the amount of time that they may need to become a productive team member for you. Third one is, again, just feeling supported and better connected to your department, to the mission of your team, the greater mission of ASU, again, which is just going to drive a better employee engagement. Of course, I'm sure you all have heard the saying, first impressions are everything, right? So having an effective onboarding experience for our students is going to then trickle to their perception of the department and whether or not, are we organized? Do we know what we're doing? And again, just helping the new employee understand their role and the expectations from you as their supervisor or from the culture of the team. And again, just helping that employee feel comfortable and feel supported. The next one here can help streamline the process. Having an effective onboarding strategy will just ensure that the students or your new employees aren't wasting time on frustrating tasks that may not be beneficial or even helpful for them or the team. So again, just having an effective, structured strategy for your team to go off of will help streamline that process just a little bit. It also can help with leading to an increase in your student staff retention, saving time and energy, resources for you and your team. I don't know about you all, but that hiring process and then the onboarding process, that can just be a lot. And I say that as I'm going through that right now. Going through the process of making sure my job description is correct, sending that to the business team to get posted, waiting for the applicant pool to come in, reviewing all of the applicants. And if you guys are experiencing similar things like me, I'm getting hundreds of applicants for one position. So how do I go through all of those and then getting an interview committee set up and then scheduling the interviews? It's just a lot of time and resources to where if we have effective onboarding strategies, it might encourage students to stay with our teams and reduce that time and energy that we're having to put into constantly rehiring for the team. Of course, too, it can also lead to self-sufficiency. So again, helping the students be confident in their work, but then is going to lead to fewer mistakes in their work that they're producing for you and the team, which of course is then going to create less of a burden for you or anybody else on the team in different projects that the students might be assisting with. And then lastly, having an effective onboarding strategy can also lead to helping you identify any skill gaps there might be in addressing those with the student, talking about those, and maybe even providing training or development opportunities as the student might need. Again, this is also a great opportunity to just ensure that those mandatory trainings that ASU has for us to pass on to the students are getting done in a timely manner there. I know today's topic is focusing on the onboarding process, but I did want to take just a quick moment and highlight some things that you can do to prep for your onboarding and the hiring process for you and your team, starting with the job descriptions and expectations, right? So you'll want to make sure that the job role and responsibilities are clearly defined in that posting, so there's no surprises for the students after they've accepted a role with you. The second one, looking at some of the administrative tasks. You'll want to go to do some of these things obviously ahead of time, which is, like I mentioned just previously, working with your business department, making sure that the job posting is getting posted when you need it to, the close dates when you need it to, and again, just ensuring that you're giving yourself enough time to then have the different interviews scheduled, go through that whole process. Also, again, with the administrative tasks, checking with your business department and making sure that all necessary paperwork and tasks are completed before the first day. So things like I-9 paperwork, tax forms, things like that need to be done before the student starts their first day with you. Of course, too, communication is going to be key. It is very important leading up to the student's first day that we are maintaining open and clear communication with the new hire prior to their start date. So for example, if they haven't been to your office, maybe all of the interviews were done via Zoom or you met in a conference room, send them an email ahead of time, just listing out the address, where they need to be going, what your office number is, maybe where parking lot options are, if that's something that your student's needing, What is the dress code needed for the office? Different things like that, just communicating those ahead of time so that there, again, is no surprises for the student when they show up on their first day. The last one here is that workspace setup. Just making sure that all necessary equipment or technology is properly installed, set up, and is fully functional and ready to use before the day before their first day starts. Because of course, we don't want students to come in and here's your desk, this is where you're going to be working, and then oops, your computer's not working, or oh, the webcam's broke. So again, just making sure all of those things are fully functional before they come in for that first day. This is also a great time too, if you do have different workspaces for your students, to provide any department flag or polos that you may have that will just help your students feel recognized and appreciated from the moment they arrive. This is also a good opportunity to leave a note from the direct supervisor. If that's you as a direct supervisor, leave a quick note just welcoming the students to the team, and again, showing, hey, we appreciate that you're here and we can't wait to get started with you. Alrighty, so now looking at the onboarding process. This can be a lengthy process. It is not one that can be completed in one day. It shouldn't be completed in just one day. But here are a few things to keep in mind as you are starting that onboarding process. So for day one, it is day one of the student starting in your office. We're starting their onboarding. It is always great to just start with a warm welcome. Give them a tour of your office location, whether that's their workspace, where your office is located, anybody else that they might be working with that would be important for them to know where their offices are located. If your student is at the front desk, identifying, maybe who the leadership are that might be walking in the door so that students can put a face to the name and start recognizing some of those individuals in your office space. It's also important to show them, where conference rooms might be, break rooms, bathrooms, different things like that. Just really, again, giving them that grand tour of your location. Introducing your working learner or student employees to everyone in the office, again, especially those that they're going to be working with, whether that's professional staff, faculty, other student employees. Again, just really introducing and helping them start making those different connections. I do also suggest going over some core values, whether that's ASU at large, again, just reminding them of what the charter and mission is. If that can segue into your own department's missions, values, and again, just reminding the student what we're all about here at ASU, which ultimately is the student success, right? So again, how are we reaching those with our students and just discussing those overall values and missions. The last one here, beginning that onboarding process now, is going to include, of course, all of those mandatory trainings, like I said, but also discussing their schedule with them, having them share their class schedule with you, again, their work schedule, of course, as well, but starting to work through those. Within this first day too, have them start some of those trainings. Again, I know ASU has a ton of mandatory trainings that we have to ensure that our students are completing, so having them start with those, or if there's any specific training for your team specifically. Like I said too, this day one, this is just a great opportunity to decorate their workspace. Again, make it feel welcoming. Show them you're excited to have them on the team. Within that first week, so now we're going into maybe day 2, day 4 of them working with you. Again, just ensuring that your new hire is getting all of those ASU mandatory trainings completed in a timely manner. So the fire safety trainings, the FERPA trainings, ASU's Title IX trainings. These are all important trainings that our students need to go through and, again, should be done in a timely manner. I do have a couple resources I'm going to share with you all here in just a little bit that will help you manage those or find where those can be located. But another resource I'll highlight in a second too is a recognition worksheet. This is one that I personally love to have my students complete as part of their onboarding process. And again, it's just a great way for me to capture how they like to be recognized. What are some of their values? What do they look for in an ideal workspace? Do they like working in teams, or are they more an independent worker? It also helps me keep track of their career goals. So again, as their supervisor, I know this is what you were hired for, but what are you interested in? And are there different ways that I can include some of your career goals into the tasks or work you're doing for me in the department? And then, of course, too, on that recognition worksheet, and again, I'll share it here in a little bit, but asking them some of their favorites. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite candy? What's your favorite drink? Those are all little ways that we can show our students, again, hey, I care about who you are as a human. And here's a little token of appreciation. Thank you again for the work you're doing with us. You can, of course, then continue to clearly outline any specific tasks or responsibilities that's associated with the student's role. Again, administrative tasks is going to include those tax forms, direct deposit information, if that's something the student's wanting to get set up. But again, this also falls with, does the student have access to the necessary systems used in your department? So things like Salesforce Marketing Cloud, if you're having your students utilize Outlook, Zoom, if your team uses any project management, like our team uses Monday.com, making sure my students have access to that because that's where all of their projects are going to live, right? So again, in that first week, just making sure they have access to those needed tools. And then I also like to point out campus resources, highlighting any resource that might be beneficial for your students to know about or to be utilizing as an employee in your department, or even just as a student here at ASU. I know there's been a couple of resources that I share with my students and they're like, what, that's a thing? One thing I like to really utilize with all of my working learners is having my students visit the MU within their first week starting with us and utilizing the professional portrait photo booth. If any of you are located on the Tempe campus, we have a really cool photo booth located at the MU over by the Desert Financial area in Pitchfork. And it's a photo booth that it's also free for us to use as staff members, faculty, alumni. We can get 3 professional portraits emailed directly to you, super easy to use. And like I said, you get a variety of pictures and they get emailed to you within seconds. So again, a great resource for your students to know about. We like to display our working learners. We have a big recognition wall in our office space that has all of our students' pictures in it. We also like to highlight our students on our staff page on the Work Plus website. So again, having them have that professional portrait is important for us, but again, also important for them, and explaining, update your LinkedIn profile picture. If you're utilizing Slack, Zoom, having a professional portrait there. The downtown Phoenix campus, if you're at downtown, they also have one of these photo booths. It's located at the post office. So again, just a good resource to know about to share with your staff, with your students. Within the first month and that ongoing onboarding process, I just really want to highlight being intentional with our students and checking in with your new working learners, just again to ensure that they have a good understanding of what your department stands for, what their role is on the team and different responsibilities they may have, but also making sure that they have, again, access to any tools or resources that is needed for them to be successful in this position. Looking now at some best practices to try to include while you are welcoming your new students to your team. The first one that I would suggest is structure. Again, having a structured onboarding process is really just ensuring that the students are receiving consistent, comprehensive training and support, which again is going to help them quickly become a productive member of your team, help them feel welcomed, and really just, again, integrate them smoothly into the team. Having structure also helps set clear expectations and will reduce any confusion, again, leading to a higher job satisfaction and that retention rate. With engagement, I highly suggest having other working learners involved in this onboarding process, and even some other professional staff members where it might be relevant for them to be included. This is just going to help foster a supportive and collaborative environment, and again, is encouraging that new hire to build relationships and connections within their team, within the office. And again, just helping them really feel included and part of that team, but is also helping them gain valuable insights from some of their colleagues. I really also like to note having that peer connection there, and having other working learners or student employees assist in the onboarding training is a great opportunity for some of your more veteran working learners in your office to showcase the leadership skills or teamwork skills, and again, just can help them be confident in the work they're doing and showing a new student kind of the ropes to the department. With development, again, just being intentional to include time for your student to have continuous development, whether that's training specific to their role with your team or offering that career and just professional development towards their own industry of interest that they would be pursuing post ASU. The last one, I'm all about celebrating and recognizing our students. So recognizing the working learners is important as it helps boost morale for your office and reinforces positive behaviors, but it also, again, fosters a sense of value and motivation for the students. So including this celebratory notion in the onboarding process and beyond, we should be celebrating and recognizing our students all year round. Just really sets a positive tone, and again, is showing the new hires that their contributions will be appreciated and encourages a culture of appreciation from the start. I did also want to highlight that we have a cool tool that will be available for you all soon that will be a tool for your working learners to complete. And again, I would encourage you to include this in maybe like the first week, first month of their onboarding. But it's a quick inventory that they can take that will help you and the student both have a good understanding of where the student's current proficiency is within the 8 core career competencies that we're talking about here with Work Plus that's coming from NACE. So again, that's a cool tool that we'll be introducing to you all soon. So just keep an eye out on the supervisor Slack channel or from that monthly newsletter we send out for new information regarding that tool. But it's a fun one that I can't wait to share with you all. Alrighty, so now diving into some of the resources that we have available for you all. For those of you that may not be as familiar with the Work Plus framework and initiative, we do have resources that are tailored specifically to you as a supervisor of student employees on our workplus.asu.edu website within the Supervisor Hub. And I would love to take just a quick moment to highlight some of the hiring or onboarding tools that we have available for you all on that hub. And I'm actually also going to throw in the comments or in the chat here a link to that hub so that if you would like to browse through it, you can do so. So again, on the Supervisor Hub, full of any and every tool, guide, resource that you could think of to help you and support you as a supervisor. With that being said, if there's something on here that you're looking for and you don't see it, let us know and we'll connect with you and get something going to ensure that it is on here for you. But within the supervisor resource, first and foremost, wanting to highlight this hiring working learners document. So again, this is just a good step-by-step helping you think about what should be included in that hiring process, whether it's that application preparation, creating a job description, the recruitment process, preparing for interviews. Again, just a good starting point for you all to look over and see if there's anything that you might have missed or, ooh, didn't think about that one. Another one here too, the onboarding checklist. Again, just a good starting point for you all. And of course, feel free to edit this to better represent your department, or if there's certain trainings and things that you require for your team, add that on here for yourself. But again, just a good spot to think, like, did I miss anything? We did a tour of the office. We discussed ASU's mission and goals. We discussed our college's mission and goals. We reviewed office policies and what it means if they're late to a shift or if they're wanting to call out from a shift, taking lunch breaks, different things like that. Again, we highlight those mandatory ASU trainings that students are needing to complete. The amount of times that I would have to reach out to our business team and be like, I think I'm missing a training. What trainings do the students need? So here's a good list of those mandatory trainings. And when you download this document, these are all hyperlinks. Will take you directly to that training for you and your students. We also have, again, just tips for welcoming your working learner. And again, making this a warm and inviting environment for your students to come into. Also listing out, if you are wanting to do gifts for your students, there's some guidelines we need to follow per ASU. So listing those out for you. And then again, kind of going into what to expect on the first day, ongoing support to welcome your students to the team. A bonus one that I do just want to highlight too, under the supporting your working learners is that recognition worksheet that I had mentioned that I like to include for my working learners. So again, showing you what this tool looks like. First and foremost, asking the student, what is your preferred name? What are your preferred pronouns? Again, making this a safe and welcoming environment for the student. Asking them to list out their birthday, if they celebrate birthdays, their anniversary employment date with you, because again, those are quick and easy ways that you can really recognize and just appreciate each of those individuals right then and right there. Like I said, I love using this tool to keep track of my students' professional goals that they might have. I share this with my students as a Google document so that they can go in and update their goals in real time. And I can just quick and check back on that before I meet with them on one-on-ones, or if there's opportunities that come up that fit that goal that a student may have. But then again, asking them some of their favorites, your favorite candy bar, your favorite beverage, your favorite ice cream flavor. And again, just those can be inexpensive ways to show students like, ooh, I thought about you because you just did a really menial task for us. And I know that wasn't fun, but it needed to get done. Thank you so much, right? So again, just celebrating our students in any way that we can. Alrighty. Jumping back to the presentation. Like I said, a large part of today's session, I want to hear from you all, and I want to see what's worked well for you and your teams as you've onboarded students. I know many of you probably already have great strategies or resources that you'd like to use. And like I said at the beginning, I'm all about sharing out those resources. We're all on a team here and supporting our students. So let's share our own resources. With that being said, I would love to open it up to the group. If anybody would like to share an example or strategies that you like to utilize, what helps you when you are onboarding new students into your team? And this is a spot, feel free to come off mute, throw it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with.
I was going to share one thing that's worked well for us in our onboarding process, and we actually didn't do this when I first got to ASU. So this is something that I observed as missing, is we have the students learn as part of their job responsibilities a very specific accessibility remediation tool, and that takes a lot of training and practice. And I thought that it would be better to give them training in context, so an understanding of why they're doing what they're doing and what the end result is. So what resulted from my observations when I first arrived versus, is this kind of a mentoring opportunity that we have set up. So I match a veteran student employee with one that's new, and kind of I have a checklist for them to go through, like these are the key core components of the program that you must be able to master and to and then I kind of guide the mentor through how to check for their understanding, and if they're not understanding something, and then at the very end kind of giving me ways to give me an indication that they're up to a general core competency of the tool. So again, when I first joined ASU, which was actually 9 years ago today, there was nothing like this in terms of a mentoring process through our training, specifically for the tools we were using. So I observed that needed to be in place. So that's something that I've since incorporated.
No, and I love that too. Thank you, Jacob, for sharing that. And absolutely too, I'm big on, just because that's how it's been done for the last 9 years doesn't mean we need to keep doing it that way, right? So if there's something that you're seeing is missing from the experience, don't be afraid to bring that to your team's attention, or just go ahead and start implementing some of those changes. I also love, Jacob, that you kind of mentioned that like mentorship or like a buddy system. And that's something actually, it's like you saw my notes, Jacob. I was going to ask everybody, does anybody else have like a mentorship or buddy system in place that you do match students with other working learners or colleagues on the team? And if so, anybody want to share out what that might look like? Because that's, I guess, not something formally that I do with my student employees. And so if anybody does do that on a more formal basis, I would love to hear what that is like for you and your team and to implement that. Like I said, I'm getting ready to hire myself. So would love to hear about that. Trish, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Abby. I usually have about 5 students per year, and I work with grad students. So I know that some individuals work with undergraduate students, so transferable. But with that being said, as a team, we go, okay, what are our strategy? And our strategy meeting usually over the summer and or like in the fall semester for the following calendar year. And so we kind of decide what are the main projects? Okay, how are we going to cover these? Do we have, but like, are we going to be hiring somebody? And as we talk about that as a larger team, figure out which projects don't like have gaps, and then hire students based on those gaps. So for example, like event planning, we didn't have enough support for someone to like like greet people at the door and go introduce a speaker. And so we needed somebody who could manage events. So that was one thing. And that person also would help support our newsletter. So that was kind of like marketing business development for them, and they work more with employers. And we have our marketing, but like social media. Well, I don't have time to do like make all that content. I'm pretty sure none of us really have that bandwidth right now. And so having someone, actually, we have at least 2 people that do our social media. They create content, they run it by our marketing team. We approve it, we review it for content, and they post it. And we continue through that and we make sure it's aligned with our strategies. So, with that being said, we look for those gaps that our team doesn't have and then find individuals that are able to fill that, or we can grow into filling that position. And then once they do begin their role, I say, these are the things we expect from you. What are the things that you need that are not included in that? And then adapt to whatever. Oh, well, I want to get more experience writing like longer copy instead of social media. Okay, well, maybe you can help out so and so with the newsletter instead. And so being flexible on how those are assigned and meeting their needs afterwards.
That's great, Trisha. And I love to, like, again, coming together and identifying where are we needing more support. Again, and I'm saying this because I need to practice what I'm preaching, in the sense of, just because I've had communication specialists doesn't mean that's the only position I can hire for. If there's different needs and vacancies that would be beneficial to fill, absolutely we should be filling those. Thank you.
I will
Go ahead.
also point out that all of our students have the same title. So they're
Oh,
all called career peers. Like that's just their job title. And then like
yep.
in like I think on the thing it's like student project worker or something like that. So then when we worked with them, like they're career peers, but when I say, all right, let's look at your resume, I'll say, what did you focus on? And I did more project management than anything. Okay, you were a project management coordinator. Go ahead and write that down. And so then you adapt the resume to communicate what they actually did, despite their actual title within our organization being career peer for their future. Hey, let's focus on what you actually did and represent that with your title.
Yeah, I love that. I also want to highlight from the chat, Rachel had mentioned that she has her current working learners help with the onboarding process, so love to hear that. But she says that they're responsible for completing specific training items, but also giving a tour of the downtown Phoenix campus. And I love that because maybe students aren't familiar with the other campuses. So greater than just a tour of the building or office space that they're in, it might be beneficial just to give them a tour around campus and help them understand where different buildings are. And again, maybe if you're collaborating with other departments or other teams across the campus, again, just pointing out good spots that they might need to be aware of or know. I love that.
Hi, so My name is Xavier. I'm a supervisor in the verification area for admission services. Something that we do is we have a student worker level 1 and student worker level 3. Our student worker level 1 is the verifier position. We process the transcripts for admissions to ASU. So they are all students that are entering transcripts, coursework data. And then we have our student supervisors, our level 3s, that will train students on the processes. They will also participate in the onboarding process. They'll work through with the verifiers on training. They'll come and introduce themselves. They'll give a tour of the area. They'll talk over, the different things they have to do, how their experience here is within verification. They also participate in a mentorship process, which is to get level 1s into level 3 positions. So they will go through, and the ones that are interested, that have, learned all the processes, if they're interested in becoming a supervisor and taking on a leadership role and gaining some more leadership experience, they can do so by working with the student supervisor and working towards getting on that path to becoming a level 3.
Thanks, Xavier. And yeah, absolutely. And I know I might even connect with you a little bit to just get more insights on that, because that is something I'm currently trying to do with one of my student employees, is kind of promote her up into a higher level student employment position. And again, just trying to give her more of those leadership opportunities and taking more responsibility over certain projects. And that definitely includes the onboarding process. And again, just having students involved in that process. I mean, I'm sure the student that would be assisting, so I'm just going to say Joe is the student that is more veteran, and he's assisting a new working learner coming in. I'm sure Joe can remember what it might have been like for his first day, the nerves, the excitement. They can really relate to that new hire coming in, right? So I love hearing that. I do want to ask a question to those of you that have been supervising for a few years now. This is not something new for you. The onboarding process is something you've done a couple times now. What is one thing, looking back now, that you wish you had known from that very first time you onboarded? So you've been onboarding now for a while. What is something you wish you knew that we could share with some of the newer supervisors on this call that are looking to onboard some students?
I think one takeaway that I took from your comments that you made earlier is to be very organized, because there are so many competing things that need attention during the onboarding process. And then oftentimes the onboarding process will happen during high peak times of the semester. So I noticed that in order to keep my attention split between onboarding and and daily office needs, being very organized and knowing upfront the process that we were going to follow as an office is helpful. And I think that the checklist is a great idea.
Yeah, go ahead, Sabrina.
Hi, everyone. I haven't been supervisor for a very long time. It's just like 2 years. I started as a student worker myself, and then I promoted to student lead photographer, and then fully become a photographer recently. So I think for me, I did onboarding like once or twice, but this training was like really effective for me because I really did not have this before. And it was quite like unorganized, I would say. I will admit it, because the first one was like, I had no idea what I am doing. But now I know I'm going to hire more students. So I know what's should have clear expectation and to be organized, and like what I can tell them what they can expect from us and what we can expect from them. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I learned a lot today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think one of the biggest tools for me, because I have been a supervisor for a very long time, and The onboarding process is kind of like the second nature, but having the comprehensive list of the mandatory trainings, because I would always inevitably forget something, and then it would come back, hey, this person hasn't completed the training. And so having the onboarding checklist, and I have actually already modified yours to fit my team, because we are an IT help desk. So there are certain systems and things that they need access to, like ServiceNow and other things that are Fulton Schools of Engineering specific. So thanks for that tool, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Roger. And I'm excited to hear that you're already starting to utilize that and editing it to fit your team. But no, I was the exact same way. Those mandatory training, my business team would be emailing me, Abby, the student should have had that done a week ago. And I was like, oh, no, I forgot about one, right? So yeah, that's exactly what it's there for, is to help us all stay on top and know where to get access to those different trainings. Elizabeth, I see your hand raised.
So yeah, I think making sure you have an open door policy with your student. I didn't realize when I hired my student that it was in March of, a start of a semester, not realizing he was a first year freshman start. So same thing, he had never had a job or anything like that. But now 4 years later, he's getting ready to graduate and still with me. I think we've created definitely an open door policy. He has my cell number if he needs me, and not just work related, but personal things, because he's an international student, he's far from home. He had issues with getting like meals on campus, so he didn't know who to turn to. He didn't have any food. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. So I think finding those resources, but being open and communicating with them that you need an open door policy, that you're there to support them, no matter if it's work related, personal related, etc., that you're a resource for them. Not that I know all the answers, but at least finding the resources and pointing them in the right direction. So I think that's really important for us to make sure we do when we start off with our students.
Absolutely. And again, understanding and taking a second to recognize that they are a human first, right? They are a student first, but that makes me so sad, Elizabeth, that student was struggling with meals. I'm glad that they felt comfortable enough to come to you and ask you for that help. Absolutely having that clear communication, open communication for our students. If you're comfortable with giving them your cell phone number, if you have a work cell phone number that you can provide them, absolutely. Again, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I also love to hear that student has been with you for their full 4 years. It's amazing. And I was like, if you have any other tips around retention, that's awesome.
I'm trying to get him to go +4+1 so I can get one more year out of him.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add also understanding that for a lot of our student staff, this might be their first job, or they might not have office experience or experience around like professionalism or even some of the tasks that you might need them to engage in. So just having patience at first and knowing that if you put the time into developing them and training them, that the output is going to be a positive return, and ultimately, we can leverage them to help make our lives and our jobs easier. So I think for me, when I first started hiring and supervising student staff as opposed to professional staff, there's a difference between, with professional staff, we kind of expect that they have a certain level of experience or understanding of things initially, but with our student staff, again, it might be their first job. They might not have as much experience in the work that we're wanting them to do, but really focusing on like their drive and their willingness to learn and take on new tasks and go to you for feedback, and really kind of working on developing them, which I think can help, to Elizabeth's point of keeping them there long term, that retention piece. If we put the time and energy and effort into them, then we might get the same back.
Yeah, that's a good point. I approach my student workers as I'm one of their professors, but I'm the professor of their work life. And I'm there to guide them and teach them on how to be in a professional setting, as opposed to just sitting in a classroom and learning. It's a different way to learn.
Roger, I love that viewpoint, because ultimately, whether we are teaching classes or not, we are all educators, right? So absolutely, I love the perspective of I'm their professor in the workplace. And again, that just really ties back to Work Plus. We're all about creating these student employment opportunities to be more of a working and learning opportunity. So again, like we've all been saying, this might be their first job. Help them understand why that's not okay to do a certain thing that they may have done or to be dressed a certain way. Again, don't just jump to discipline and wrong, but teaching them why that's incorrect and how they can turn that into a positive light or improve for the next time. All right, one last question for you all. I'd love to hear if you all do gather feedback, how are you gathering feedback from your new student employees about their onboarding experience? Is that something that you're talking with your students? Do you have a form that you share with your students? Again, just to capture that experience to, again, improve for future new hires?
Our student supervisors actually do all that. We don't do that in our department because it's their job to onboard and train all the new incoming students because they are functioning at a higher level. So they have developed lots of Google Docs that they use. They're constantly updating, changing. We call them work in progress documents. So as far as the onboarding experience, if the student supervisor sees something that they feel is not working, they will come and talk to Xavier and me about it. And then we tell them we'll go ahead and change it. But Xavier and I don't make any of those changes because we are teaching them to be the leaders. So it's just their responsibility to communicate with us. But at the end of the day, they change it.
I love that, Lisa. And again, giving them the autonomy to do so, right? Like you are in charge of the onboarding process. If there's something that you see that needs to be tweaked in one way or the other or removed completely, I love that they're still coming to you and Xavier about it, but ultimately it is their responsibility to get that in place. Absolutely. I see a couple folks saying they have one-on-one meetings. They do check-ins throughout the first couple weeks just to see what can be improved based on what's needed. Absolutely. I love seeing all the one-on-one meetings, everybody. That's awesome. For any of my newer supervisors, if you haven't onboarded yet, you're getting ready to onboard, do you all have any questions or concerns that maybe myself or any of these other experienced supervisors that have been onboarding can assist with? Or if there's any challenging points that you all are finding within the onboarding process. I know, Roger, we were talking about those mandatory trainings and keeping track of those. Is there anything else that might be challenging for you with your onboarding?
I would just I think the nature of our work is really different than the other offices. So we are a photography team. We are going to on field. I think the challenge that we face in our field was like sending a student by themselves on the first assignment is quite challenging. So what I do is like I pair them with another student who already work before in the team. It's again coming into the mentorship. But that was something at the beginning when I joined myself as a student worker. So it was like quite stressful going in the field by yourself. And like, I don't know what to do and all of that. But we are trying to figure out more like what's the most like effective way that the student are not feeling stressed, but also like doing their work in the best way.
No, that's a great example. Of course, like, again, the nerves that they might have, they've never done that before. How can they start that, right? So I love that you're utilizing kind of that mentor buddy system. But yeah, if there's any other effective ways that we could help the student get some more of that experience before going into the field and just diving headfirst. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I've been supervisor for over 3 years and going on 4. Something that I've recently started including in, at least, I know this isn't the onboarding process, it's kind of leading up to it. But when we do our interviews, we do a Google form, okay? Because we employ a lot of working learners. We're usually anywhere between 60 to 100 working learners at any given time. So something to get a little bit more personalized and see maybe what's out there that I've started doing is I leave a section for them to tell them about themselves. So I'll tell them, this is your opportunity to tell us about yourself. Do you participate in any student orgs? Things like that. And something that's helped is that we do get people where, like, for example, our area, we have a lot of international working learners. Okay. And then you get people that apply and they participate in a lot of international student orgs, especially ISSC. So when they're participating and you find out they're in leadership positions, that also helps you kind of get a better understanding of, the people that are going to be able to keep longevity within your area, help out different areas that you might not be an expert in, but because they participated and that's what they live and breathe, they have a better understanding and a better way to share their expertise with you. And it creates a better sense of community. So, yeah.
I love that. And I'm like, why didn't I think about including, are you involved in any student orgs or clubs on campus as part of that recognition worksheet? I think I might have to go add that in there. Because to your point, like you're saying, Xavier, that's awesome to know going in, because if they are sitting on any type of boards within clubs, that's obviously showing that they do have a little bit more experience with different competencies or skills, right? So again, being able to tap into those different skills, or knowing that, ooh, they're really strong in this piece, let's give them some more tasks or projects to focus on that. I love that. Roger, I think I saw you had come off mute too. Was there something else you wanted to share?
Yeah, one of the things that I struggle with at this particular position with student employees is that scheduling, because I have to have a certain coverage because it's a help desk. So we have to have somebody here from 8 to 5. And so what I chose to do was, you know what, this is what I need. And then I tell my student workers, you guys get together because you know your school schedules and school is more important. So you tell me what my coverage is going to be and who's going to be here when. And then I put that data into our team's scheduling system. And that way I don't have, that's one less thing I have to do. And it gives them a sense of empowerment that they're in control of their own destiny when it comes to when am I going to work? When am I going to go to school? When am I going to do my homework? Yeah. So I find it helpful.
No, that absolutely seems helpful. And to that point too, I just always think when I'm working with my students and we're getting ready to develop their work schedule for the fall semester, constantly saying, okay, but what's your class schedule? Because I've had a student, they're like, well, I can work till 1, my class starts at 1. And I'm like, that's not going to work, because you need to allow yourself travel time, right? You might need to run to the restroom. You might want to grab something to eat before you go to class. So absolutely, I feel like that also could help students, again, get a better sense of maybe when they should be working or could be working. I know we're getting close, but Lisa had a great question in the chat. So I'd love to hear from any of you that do conduct one-on-one meetings. Lisa was asking how many students you might be employing, because as Xavier also just said, they employ upwards of 100 students, and that can be challenging for Lisa and Xavier to manage. But for those of you that do have those one-on-ones, how many are you supervising, and kind of what does that look like?
So I do have 4. I mean, currently I have 2, and then 2 more are joining. It will be in total 4. What it helps me is like the document we keep updating every week. It shows the progress of the student, the project that they completed, and also in case if they're asking me for recommendation later, I can just go back and see what they did. And also they can use it as their like when they are building their resume, they can just use what task they use it. So I found it really helpful. I do this with my supervisor too. I update my own document and they update their own document so that we can have our meetings.
That's a great idea, to have a running document and the student can just share what projects they've been completing, if they might have any barriers or questions for the supervisor. Is that something that you check, like, let's say every Thursday you're checking? Is that something you're checking every day? What's that kind of cadence look like, if you don't mind me asking?
It's every Monday for 15 minutes for each student. And then we have a bunch of questions like, what's your priority for this week? What did you complete it? What are you expecting? Or what items you need to discuss with your supervisor? Or whatever, if I have something, I will list it over there too. So I can like, you can work in this project, this is priority and all of that, which is like helpful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, I do know I've had some supervisors let me know that when they have a high number of students like that, they start to identify, and it kind of sounds like you might have some student supervisors or lead students that could you identify 10 students, and then those 10 students each are responsible with meeting with other students, and then you and Xavier, you guys would only have to worry about the 10 lead students to come back to you and share insights from the other employees. That might be something beneficial in kind of like setting a structure like that. But
It's something that's definitely crossed our mind.
Yeah.
Because we are processing transcripts year round, it does get to be difficult because you're either processing or you're training. So it's been something that's always been a challenge that we're working through. Something that we do is, and I'll start with the Beth first. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk to, you know, the ones that are having some issues. Let them know they're not in trouble. It's not a ding on them. Just, hey, we noticed this is what's happening. You're making some errors here. We'll go over what they are, what they need to pay attention to, and things like that. And then what we'll do at the end of it is we'll tell them, here are the things that you're doing great on. You're reading through everything, you're understanding what the data is. You just got some typos here and there, but you know what you're doing. Another thing we do is if, for example, we have some students that are outperforming, we will figure out, okay, how do they prefer to be told that information? A lot of time what I will do is I will send a Sun Award and I'll let them know, hey, good job. And I'll send them an email and all that stuff. We do have a lot, so it's been a bit of a challenge to do it physically. You know, printing them out and putting them somewhere. It is something I had done at the beginning when I was an office specialist. I'd like to be able to figure out a way to do that now that we have more staff than we did then, to do it in a different way and more efficiently and better. But I thought I'd offer that information in case anybody else out there wanted to understand kind of like where I'm coming from. And if they had any input, they can always reach out to me.
I love it. And with that being said too, utilize the Slack channel or supervisor Slack channel. If any of you have other questions or comments, or you want to share a resource or a strategy that's working well with you, please, please, please feel free to utilize that Slack channel or to connect with any of us too. That's awesome. But again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your insights and different strategies that you use with your teams. I can't wait to, again, take a look at some of the things you all said and start implementing that with my own student employees, but also updating and creating some new resources we can be putting on the Work Plus website for you all. Again, thank you all so much. If there are topics for future workshops you'd like us to do, let us know. Slack us, email Amanda or I. But again, thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you have a lovely rest of your Thursday, and we'll talk soon.